What if I told you the reason you're exhausted isn't because you care too much? It's because you've been emotionally on call your whole life, and the moment you go quiet, they panic. This isn't some mystical trick. It's the subtle art of pulling back a power most of us never fully understand, let alone harness. We think influence comes from noise, from speaking louder, showing up more, giving more. That's the first step of real spiritual growth, reclaiming the energy you've been leaking into emotional debts you never owed. Beyond games, the psychology of value. This isn't about manipulation or playing games. It's about a core human truth. We value what's scarce. When you're constantly available, always responding, always pouring out your energy, people start taking you for granted. Your presence becomes an expectation, not a gift to be cherished. The ripple effect of absence. When you consciously choose to step back, something profound shifts. People who barely registered you now feel your absence keenly. Those who may have taken advantage begin to question their actions. The energy you freely gave becomes something they have to earn. This is where real transformation begins. Think of that breath you take just before you hit send on that angry text. That's where your power lies. Silence as strategy. Silence isn't passive, it's precision. When you stop feeding chaos with reaction, the cycle collapses. Not with noise, but with absence. The group. Chat experiment. Picture this your typical group chat. You're always the first to reply, always available, always explaining yourself. Then one day, you don't. You leave the message unread. No justification, no explanation. Suddenly, people notice everything okay. They ask. The silence becomes a signal, a palpable void. They feel your energy pulling back, your presence gone. Power reclaimed without a word. The power dynamic subtly shifts, all without uttering a single word. You don't need to argue to prove your point, or justify your feelings to validate them. Sometimes the most commanding thing you can do is nothing. There's a silent transaction happening in every relationship. A transaction most of us aren't even aware of. Access versus connection. It's not just about connection, it's about access, emotional access. That version of you that people rely on to comfort, to react, to absorb their issues. The fixer, the soother, the one who explodes on cue, then apologizes just to keep the peace. You think you're being yourself, but are you? Or are you just playing the role of the stabilizer? The truth is, they are not connecting with you. They're connecting with your patterns. Predictability, the opposite of intimacy. They're connecting with the emotional predictability you've trained into the relationship. They know exactly when you'll flinch, when you'll cave, when you'll crack a joke to avoid the edge of truth. That's not intimacy. That's programming. The more reliable your reactions, the more control you surrender. Availability as leverage. Unchecked, emotional availability becomes leverage. It's not always intentional, but it's always in effect. The moment someone knows precisely which button to push to trigger a response that's not connection, that's control. Now imagine they bait you as they always do. This time you don't react. No defense, no frustration, just silence. Watch what happens. Breaking the loop. They stumble. The script falls apart because you've broken the loop. In that pause, you've reclaimed your power. It wasn't your love they relied on. It was your reaction. That was the emotional currency they learned to spend. The second you stop reacting, your identity, your value begins to shift, not in their eyes, but in yours. The fear of neutrality. They don't fear your anger. They fear your neutrality. They don't fear your voice. They fear the silence where their power used to reside. Once you stop playing the part they cast you in, they no longer know who they're dealing with. Good. That means you're finally meeting the real you, the currency of your soul. Let's be honest, most people don't truly respect your time. They respect your availability, your access, your usefulness. But your time, your sacred limited never-get-it-back time, is rarely considered. Society's trained people to expect your energy like a subscription service. And you've been trained to auto-renew without ever checking if you have anything left to give. Alignment versus chaos. Your time is your soul's currency. Every time you spend it on someone else's chaos instead of your own alignment, you're going broke in ways no one can see. You cancel your evening, the one night your nervous system was begging for rest, the bath, the book, the nothingness, and pick up the phone. Drama again. You nod. You hold space. You shrink. When it's over, they feel better. But you're vibrating on a lower frequency. You've traded your peace for proximity, the vibrational signature. Your body is a living frequency. Every choice you make, every yes or no, shapes the emotional tone you carry into the world. Some frequencies lift you, others pull you under. High frequencies like joy, clarity, self-respect. Low frequencies like guilt, resentment, depletion. Every forced yes lowers your vibration, not metaphorically but energetically. You're literally tuning yourself to someone else's chaos pattern. The spiritual trap of martyrdom. The more you do it, the more your field adapts. You start attracting people who expect that overly available, boundaryless version of you. They don't even realize they're doing it. They're just sinking to the frequency you've broadcasted. Here's the spiritual trap that blocks true spiritual growth. You start thinking being drained is being loving, that abandoning yourself is being kind, that martyrdom is some sort of moral high ground. It's not. Every time you say yes to what your soul didn't consent to, you fracture your alignment. Burnout, the cost of imbalance. Fractured alignment becomes chronic imbalance emotionally, mentally, even physically. That's when burnout shows up, that hollow, numb feeling of living out a life that doesn't even feel like yours. Still, most people won't ask what it cost you to be there for them. They will just assume you had it to give. Why? Because we live in a culture where people feel entitled to your time, but rarely honor it. The permission slip you don't need. You don't owe anyone an explanation for protecting your energy. Your peace doesn't need a permission slip. Your frequency doesn't need to be lowered just to make someone else comfortable in their dysfunction. You weren't born to be emotionally on call. You were born to tune into the resonance of your soul, the heavy truth of limited time. Your time here is limited. You don't get to extend it by pleasing people. Every hour you spend in resentment is an hour you never get back. Your life isn't some infinite reservoir of maybe next time. It's happening right now, this minute. So the question isn't just who are you trying to keep available, but also who are you depriving from who you could truly be? Subtle self-erasure. Being available is one of the most subtle forms of self-erasure. When people love what you offer more than who you are, it creates an illusion of closeness, one that feels warm on the surface but hollow at the core. They never held you. They held what you offered, the calm you brought, the chaos you absorbed, the version of you trained to soothe. And when that version paused, the illusion of closeness dissolved. The mask that became a prison. Maybe you've gotten so good at being helpful Because your real voice was dismissed when your truth was too disruptive to be welcome. You adapted. You gave the world what it rewarded: your competence, your loyalty, your availability. So the mask stayed. Over time, that mask stopped being an accessory and became a prison. Rehearsing, not responding. You weren't responding anymore. You were rehearsing. You weren't connecting. You were maintaining your relevance, your role, your place in the lives of people who only saw you through their own need. You became more accessible to others, but less accessible to yourself. You gave yourself away in fragments. A reply here, a fix there, a shoulder to cry on, a rescue again. Little by little, the signal of you, the real you, grew faint, unstable. It's not that you don't exist. It's that you've become difficult to locate inside your own life. That's what happens when usefulness becomes your currency. You keep handing it out until there's nothing left to spend on your own needs, the ones who truly see you. And when you finally stop performing, you'll see it. The people who only stayed for the version of you that solved things are not your people. The ones who stay when you rest. Those are the ones who see you. Invitation: take off the mask. Take off the mask. Withdraw the performance. See who stays and really cares for you, not to punish, but to protect what's left, to recover the parts of you that never needed to be earned in the first place. You are not here to be a utility. You are not here to be accessed on demand. You are not here to be a server of others' needs on demand. The truth is simple. Every overreaction is a power outage in your internal system. Jung and the shadow. Jung understood this long before social media turned every thought into a performance. He saw the psyche not as a filing cabinet of thoughts, but as a living current, an energetic system. Constantly managing where attention flows, where emotion is focused, where power is leaked or retained. When you react from impulse without pause, without reflection, you divert that energy away from your higher function, walking away from traps. It's walking away from conversations that only exist to feed someone's need for conflict. It's staying silent in the face of provocation, not because you have nothing to say, but because you know they won't hear it anyway. It's recognizing that not every invitation to battle is worth attending. Some are traps disguised as dialogue, voids that consume whatever light you throw into them, places that burn your light. Avoid the places that only want to burn your light. Some environments don't want your clarity. They want your chaos. Evolution depends on energy. Guarding. Remember, you are not here to be perpetually triggered. You are here to transform, to transmute, to guard your energy as if your evolution depends on it. Because it does. Few moments are more defining than the split second after you've been triggered. When the words hit, the tone sharpens the look, the gesture, the silence, and suddenly your entire body is bracing for impact. Confronting the shadow. You can feel it. The blood rush, the tightening in your chest. It's not just the moment. It's the unexamined vulnerability within. This confrontation with your shadow is not just psychological. It's essential for spiritual growth. He believed the path to the full realization of the self required radical confrontation with the shadow. Your shadow is the hidden part of the psyche buried beneath the persona. Shadow's voice. Signal for healing triggers are the shadow's voice, not to shame you, but to signal there's something here you've abandoned, and it's time to bring it home. That can only happen if you stay, not stay in the argument, but stay in your self-possession. Root wound and learning to sit with it. It requires you to feel the very thing you've spent your entire life avoiding: helplessness, abandonment, invalidation, betrayal. Whatever the root wound is, the trigger will find it. If you let it, the trigger will rule you. But if you learn to sit with it, to sit with the shame, the anger, the rejection, long enough to see it, you take its power away. True power, steady and unbothered. All you can do is nothing. No defense, no performance. Just stillness. Stillness that says, I know who I am. And this doesn't get to decide that true power is not loud. True power is steady, measured, unbothered by noise that used to destabilize you. This is the moment you realize the trigger is no longer in control. You are evolution, no longer controlled by the trigger. That is not avoidance, that is evolution. If you want to measure how free you really are, don't look at how you feel when life is smooth. Look at how you respond when the storm hits. Projection versus connection. It's a performance of worth. When people are interacting with their projection of you, they're not connecting to your being. They're relating to your utility, to the image of you that confirms their worldview, to the version of you that doesn't disrupt their fantasy, to the archetype they've cast you in to soothe something in them. You become the helper, the fixer. But that's not love. Love is based in knowing. Projection is based in need. One liberates, the other demands your obedience. Manipulation through projection. The danger of projection is not just misrecognition, it's the psychic erosion that occurs when your identity is reduced to a single dimension. You become a symbol, a role, a function in someone else's emotional economy. You are praised when you stay in the role, validated, when you self-sacrifice, rewarded for silence, and with it, the manipulative dynamic lives because manipulation requires predictability. It needs your consent, whether silent or conditioned. It depends on your willingness to perform your part, even when it costs you your peace. Sovereign unpredictability. But the moment you stop performing, you become unpredictable, not in a volatile way, but in a sovereign one. You are no longer readable through the lens of their past, no longer shapeable through guilt, no longer pliable under pressure. Clarity and observation. The new version of you, one rooted in awareness, is not retreating. It is reclaiming. Jung once pointed that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Not every conflict is worth entering, especially when the conflict is designed to provoke your reactivity, not your growth. They're often not speaking to you at all. When someone attempts to bait you through criticism, distortion, or performance, they're speaking to the image they've projected onto you. Strength in stillness. Your clarity is not weakness. It is part of their pattern, but it's no longer yours. You are not here to be reshaped by their discomfort. True strength is the stillness that sees, not the voice that defends. In that quiet, truth becomes audible again. Lucid silence is not the silence of withdrawal or defeat. It is the silence of the awake, the silence of a mind that no longer races to defend, correct, or perform. The silence of someone who understands that not every moment calls for articulation. Some call for observation, liberation through witnessing. When you're in charge, you are no longer speaking from programming. You're no longer speaking from childhood reflex, from trauma logic, from the archetype someone else trained you to perform. Silence interrupts that loop. It turns you from participant into witness. Witnessing in its purest form is the beginning of liberation. To observe is to reclaim the energy you've spent trying to control narratives that were never yours to manage. Observing your own nervous tics. To witness is to step outside the emotional transaction And in that place, you notice your own nervous tics, your urge to be liked, your fear of being misunderstood, your tendency to over-explain. You notice how often your voice has been used to defend boundaries you could simply enforce with presence. Protecting your truth. The less you say, the more clearly you're seen first by yourself and then by others. To choose observation over reaction is to reclaim your tempo, to take yourself out of emotional captivity and return to the seat of your own clarity. That choice isn't always empowering. It can be draining, especially when your words fall on ears that aren't really listening. We often think sharing is always the right thing to do, that if we explain ourselves clearly enough, we'll be understood. The truth is not everyone is ready or willing to receive what you reveal. Giving away your truth to the wrong people can leave you feeling more misunderstood, more frustrated, and more disconnected. You've handed over your peace to someone who benefits from your confusion. Emotional maturity. Knowing when to speak. You get to be selective with your truth. It's about protecting your energy. It's about knowing when to speak and when to simply hold your clarity in silence. Not every conversation is safe. Not every listener is capable. And not every moment is meant for disclosure. This is emotional maturity, knowing when your truth is being asked for out of love and when it's being extracted out of control. You start to notice how often you over-explain, how often you give away your power trying to be understood. But deep down you know nothing changes until your behavior does. Awareness and responsibility. Carl Jung wrote that true transformation only begins when awareness meets responsibility, when insight stops being theoretical and starts shaping how you live. It's not enough to know that people-pleasing is rooted in fear. You have to feel the fear and still say no. It's not enough to say, your peace matters. You have to let the phone ring. You have to stop explaining your decisions to people who never listen. We've been trained to think that disconnection means something's wrong, that if we're not surrounded, included, or constantly connected, we've failed somehow. The power of solitude. What if that's not true? What if solitude isn't a punishment at all, but the beginning of something important? There comes a point in life when you start to feel worn out by your own performance. You catch yourself saying yes when you want to say no. You show up to things that don't feed you. You smile, nod, and go along, even when it costs you peace. Rebuilding around truth. Maybe you've reached the place where no one needs anything from you at all. You begin to enjoy your own company. You choose rest over obligation. You say no without guilt. You sit in silence and realize you're not lonely. You're peaceful. From that space, something powerful happens. You begin rebuilding your life around your truth, not other people's expectations. Chaos isn't closeness. It's instability. You stop needing constant validation. You stop chasing closeness that leaves you feeling empty. You start choosing what feels honest, even if it's quiet, even if it leaves others confused. It's easy to mistake that intensity for depth. Emotional chaos isn't closeness, it's instability, masked as intimacy. Walking away from it doesn't make you cold. It makes you clear, the quiet kind of peace. You may not notice the weight until it's gone. But one day, after you put some distance between you and the person who always pulled you into their storm, you'll feel it, peace. Not the dramatic kind, the quiet kind. You stop overthinking. You stop rehearsing conversations. Your world gets quieter, your mind steadier, your heart lighter. Sometimes what feels like loss is just clarity, taking up space where chaos used to live. Let it. The rebirth of the self. Something shifts when you stop giving your energy to what depletes you. A quiet power returns, not loud, not dramatic, but undeniable. It shows up in how you walk, how you speak, how you hold space for yourself without asking permission. Only from this place can true spiritual growth take root, grounded in wholeness, not performance. Not the one you performed to be loved, but the one who was always there, the one who no longer needs to act. It doesn't shrink in rooms that can't hold its truth. Grief and sacred wholeness. It knows that solitude isn't punishment. It's preparation, and that boundaries aren't barriers. They're birth canals for a new identity. Yes, there will be grief for who you had to be, for the roles you played, for the years you spent making yourself smaller to keep the peace. But once the release is complete, what rises is something sacred. A version of you rooted in wholeness, not approval. You start creating instead of coping. You start choosing instead of performing, grounded, honest, and designed to bring you back to yourself. Call to action. If this message resonated with you, if you're ready to reclaim your energy and rewrite your story, drop "New Me" in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. This journey is just beginning. When you're ready to go deeper, watch the full playlist and tell us about a time when you reclaimed your energy from too demanding people and how that changed your life.
Jatute sitinar,